So welcome everybody. I see some familiar names in the attendees. Welcome everybody, and welcome old friends and new friends. I love smart controllers. Whenever I get asked to talk about smart controllers, I just jump at the opportunity, because since 2007, I've installed, let's see, what's my number here? I've installed 56 smart controllers since then. And right off the bat, whenever I install a smart controller, I ask the client to send me their past water bills for at least the past couple of years. And then I actually monitor on an ongoing basis how that smart controller is doing over time. And not even over time, just within a month or two, I've been seeing savings between 43 and 78% water savings over the past year. And yes, that you heard me right. That was 78%. And the average is actually in the mid 40s. So it's because what I often say is that when I go out to check people's irrigation or check their controllers and their schedules, I find that people are overwatering, tremendously overwatering, because people just don't know how much water plants need, how much water to give them, when to give it to them. And so a reason that I love smart controllers is that they just take it all into their hands. They do it all automatically for you, so that you don't have to remember to set your schedule or change your schedule. So that's my preamble. I love smart controllers. And let's go ahead and go on. So what is a smart controller exactly? It's an irrigation controller that self-adjusts every day based on real-time weather or soil moisture. Now, in this presentation today, I'm not going to be talking about soil moisture-based irrigation controllers. I'm going to be talking about weather-based irrigation controllers, because those are the ones that are most commonly represented and commonly used out there in the world, or in our world here anyway, in Northern California and all of California too. So the soil moisture based ones they're not new on the scene, but they're just not all that common out there. And I wish they were more common, and I just don't have the experience with them to be able to address them. So I'm going to be addressing weather-based irrigation controllers today. And then we have one more, whoops, sorry about that. We have one more thing here. Now, a smart controller, it's like a thermostat, only it controls water instead of heat and air conditioning. So just imagine this. If you had to, like, we have our thermostat downstairs. We wake up in the morning, we come down, the thermostat, we put our thermostat on 68. And then if it gets cold in the house, the furnace kicks on and takes it up to 68 and then kicks off, and everything is just groovy all the time. It's an even keel 68. It knows how long to come on and how much heat to apply to provide the heat that I'm asking for. So smart controllers work the same way. It's like a thermostat with the water. It knows, or you have to tell it, you tell it how much water and when to water, and then it takes the weather every day. Now, I say here in real-time weather, and when I say real-time weather, really what I mean is, for the most part, it's yesterday's weather. So the smart controller will base its schedule and change its irrigation schedule every day, every zone on your property, every day, based on what the weather was yesterday. And they even are looking forward now and forecasting hot spells, rain in the forecast. And so they're reacting to weather that just happened and also taking into account whether that could happen in the near future. So it doesn't get any better than that in having things just be automatic. Now, smart controllers do need to be programmed correctly, because I've seen them save tons of water and I've seen them waste tons of water when not programmed correctly. So I do recommend that if you are a total DIYer, you want to do it all yourself, I recommend really strongly that you keep that phone number of tech support for that smart controller. Keep it standing by. Those people are there to help you and they want to help you. They want their products to be used successfully and to save our precious water supply. So I recommend very strongly that they get programmed correctly. All right. Now, a smart controller is not a fix for a bad irrigation system. All right. What I like to say is don't put a smart controller on a dumb irrigation system. So really what you want is you want your irrigation to be efficient. And then that smart controller comes along and it can measure and give out the exact amount of water that plants need at the exact right time. But it will not take a funky irrigation system and make it beautiful. All right. But the smart controller is a really good start. And I actually often recommend to people is get that smart controller on there first. If your irrigation system is funky, get that smart controller on there first. And then at least you've got that functionality of the controller adjusting the amount of water every single day based on the weather. All right. So this bar chart depicts common scheduling practices out there. And the way it works is that plant water requirement is measured in inches. And so on this bar chart, I have the blue. The blue is the actual plant water requirement for, now this is this U, actually N shape, this bell curve shape that we have here is a very, very common California bell curve shape for the plant water requirement, plant water needs. And often people I know that a lot of you here look at this and you say, oh, that's the ETO curve. And I'm going to be getting into the ETO curve in just a couple of slides. But for right now, we'll call these blue bars plant water requirement. And we can see that in July, the highest plant water requirement, that's like 100%. That's the highest. Now, the red bars represent common scheduling practices. So let me explain to you what's going on here. Now, really what I'd like to concentrate on is these months of July through October, because this is where this common scheduling practices, this is where they commonly fall down and waste a lot of water. So what happens is we know that in July, it's hotter than Hades. It is so hot out. And we know in the trade, we call July peak time, PEAK, peak time. It's the time that the plants need the most water of any time of year. So it's peak time. So what's commonly done is that people program in that peak irrigation schedule, and then they leave it, that same schedule, all the way through August all the way through September, all the way through October. And then once it starts raining consistently in November, then they just turn the controller off. But what ends up happening is that the plant water requirement in August is quite a bit lower than what it was in July. And then in September, it's quite a bit lower still. And in October, look, it's less than half. October ends up being about 43% of the plant water requirement of July. So what's happening is this peak watering schedule is watering, but the plant water requirement is going down. And then we can see this excess here. All of these excesses, that is wasted water, my friends. That's wasted water. And the reason that people give for leaving an irrigation schedule like this is that they say, yeah, but we have 100-degree temperatures in August, in September, and in October. So I need to leave that schedule as it is because it's over 100 degrees. But even though it's over 100 degrees in August, September, and October, the plant water requirement is still going down, down, down. The temperature may be the same, but the water requirement is going down because that water requirement depends on not the air temperature. It depends mostly on solar radiation, which is sunlight. So that sun is on a lower trajectory in the sky, and the days are shorter. And so the plants don't need that much water. They need less and less and less. So this slide right here is like, it's my number one reason that we should all be using smart controllers. And another really good reason is that it is required by our state's landscape ordinance now that smart controllers be used. And right now, the landscape ordinance is only being enforced for new construction and large landscape renovations that require permits going into the building department or the planning department and getting permits. So right now, the landscape ordinance is only being enforced for those types of projects, but it can, and I believe it will, expand out so that smart controllers at some point, I'm pretty sure, will be required equipment. And because they save so much water, it just cannot be denied. And so it's one of the reasons that I love for people to ask me to talk about smart controllers, because I take care of those 56 controllers that I said I have installed over the years. I think I still monitor about 5 or 6 of those. And once they got settled in, we programmed it and then we tweaked it here and there once we saw how the plant material was responding to it. Once we got it dialed in, it's almost like, I hate to say this term, but it's almost like set it and forget it. I do hate to say that term because set it and forget it is a pretty negative term. But that's what I found, is that once it's dialed in, it's like, wow, we still check up on it. We don't just walk away and say, okay, we're good. We still check up on it. Somebody's checking up on it because stuff happens, right? But this is really like a fantastic reason for using smart controllers. Okay, going on. Now, if I have your ear, I have to put in a plug for low and very low water plants, because California is a low water plant state. If you go out into our regional parks, our state parks, even our federal parks here in California, and you go out there and you don't see irrigation, you don't see pipes, you don't see drip, you don't see micro sprays anywhere. You see landscapes that with plants that are adapted to the California climate. They are adapted to dry summers and rainy winters. So what I've done here on this bar chart is, this is from January to December for Livermore, California. I got the average rainfall for each month of the year. And then in inches, so it's really convenient that plant water requirement is measured in inches, and so is rainfall. And so is irrigation. So irrigation, rainfall, plant water requirement, it's all in inches. So it's easy to create graphics like this where you can see graphically whether the rainfall can take care of plants of differing water needs. So then what we have here is the red line is the plant water requirement, the monthly plant water requirement in inches of high water plants. The yellow line is the plant water requirement in inches for moderate water plants. The green line is the plant water requirement in inches for low water plants. And the orange line is the plant water requirement for low water plants with at least 1 inch of mulch covering the planted area. So now we can see here when we look at the rainfall patterns, high water plants, how well does rainfall take care of high water plants? Well, in this case, it looks like it takes care of high water plants in November, December, January, February, not really March, but January, February. So 4 months out of the year, we get enough rainfall to take care of high water plants. Then looking at the moderate water plants, how many months out of the year does rainfall take care of moderate water plants? November, December, January, February, March. Okay, that's 5 months instead of 4. Now we have low water plants. How many months out of the year would rainfall take care of low water plants? October, November, December, January, February, March, April, and half of May. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5 months. Rainfall, average rainfall in Livermore, California, itself, free water from the sky, takes care of low water plants. All right. So with low water plants, we only need to hopefully hold on to that rainfall water and get that mulch on there, because this orange line represents low water plants with mulch. So get that mulch on there, hold on to that water as long as possible. And then hopefully in some parts of I think, let's see, so we're talking about Pleasanton, Livermore, San Ramon, and Dublin. Hopefully we can get that rainfall to take care of those plants as far into the summer as possible. And then once that store of rainfall that was captured in the soil and held on to because of the mulch, and the low water plants aren't using much of that water, then maybe in September you need to irrigate with that potable water supply. All right, maybe August in the hotter areas, Livermore. But you know, this really makes a strong argument for using low water plants in the landscape, because California is a low water plant state. All right, you'll only find moderate and high water plants in the understory of the forests or in riparian areas. But everywhere else, California is a low water plant state. So that I love this bar chart, because if our water restrictions ever got to the point where they said, sorry, you can't water, you can't use potable water for your water supply. And last September, many areas in California were on the verge of having that declaration made. You don't get any water for your irrigation. And right now in Southern California, they're getting 1 day a week of water. So this graphic right here shows us, number one, where we're going, possibly going with our water situation in California. Number two, what to do about it. Use low water plants. All right. So because we're talking about smart controllers here, I am going to give you a little bit, just a little bit of, whoops, sorry, I think I got a stray hair. Just a little bit of irrigation scheduling basics, just so you know what that controller is doing in the background on your behalf and on the plant's behalf. All right. There is an algorithm that the controller is using to create its irrigation schedule. It uses ETO. It uses plant factor. It uses CIMIS, California Irrigation Management Information System. It uses the WCALS list, water use classification of landscape species. It uses precipitation rates of the irrigation. It uses the distribution uniformity of the irrigation. And it uses this lovely runtime formula. It takes all of these factors into account and then crunches it in a formula. And then it creates its irrigation schedule for every day. It creates a new irrigation schedule. Now, I'm not going to explain what these are to you. That's why I've got the circle with the red line through it. But I just wanted you to see what it was doing in the background and what the algorithm is made up of. All right, because the controller is doing this stuff automatically for you. Okay, so with irrigation scheduling, you need to know how much water to give the landscape and when to water the landscape or any given part of it. So first we'll address the how much water part. Just a second, I'd like to keep up with my presentation on my other computer over here. All right. So how much water? So that question is answered by evapotranspiration. That is how much water, the how much water question. And what evapotranspiration is it's two words put together, evaporation and transpiration. And what it is it's the amount of water in inches that has left the soil. So it has either evaporated or it's been transpired through the tissues of the plant, goes from a liquid form to a gaseous form into the atmosphere. So it has left the soil and now it needs to be replaced by irrigation. All right, so this is the how much water. And when I told you that the plant water requirement is measured in inches, this is it. This is our plant water requirement measured in inches, evapotranspiration or ETO. And ETO stands for reference evapotranspiration. So we have a crop that we compare everything in the landscape to. And it is cool season turf grass. So it's that turf grass that is commonly used in Northern California. We compare all of the rest of the plants in the landscape to that. And I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of how it does that, but I just wanted you to know that That is the answer to the how much water. Now, there's another answer to that, how much water, and that is, I told you that the plant water requirement is based on cool season turf grass. So then how do we decide how to measure the amount of water that for the rest of the plants? Because we don't have just cool season turf grass as our landscapes. Hopefully not. So one way is that we have these ongoing plant irrigation trials at UC Davis. And these irrigation trials have been going on since, I think it was 2006 was when they started these trials, and it's ongoing. They do it every year. And they take landscape plants and they subject the plants to 4 different watering strategies. Like a regular water strategy, and then less water and less water and less water. And then they have open houses where they have people come out, mostly professionals, and I think master gardeners go to that too. They go out, that's why you see people walking around with clipboards and writing on them, is because they have people come out and they assess the aesthetic value of these plants that have been watered in different ways. So this study, the results of this study has stated very emphatically that all plants are high water plants until they're established. And how long is established? And once you put it in the ground, what they say is 3 strong growing seasons. So what I like to say when I create an irrigation, by the way, I'm an irrigation designer mostly. That's mostly what my day job is. Other than giving talks like this, I design irrigation for a living. So when I design irrigation schedule, irrigation for landscape projects, and I create irrigation schedules, I create an establishment schedule and I create a mature plant schedule. So that establishment schedule, I like to say this is for the first year, because all of these plants are high water plants for the first year. So in other words, you go to the nursery and you buy 12 lavenders because you want to have a low water plant area with all lavenders. Oh, beautiful, smells good, looks beautiful. And you put them in the ground. Those are not low water plants until they're established. Okay, so at least a year later, that's when you can give them low water amounts for low water plants. But until they're established, they're considered high water plants. And this is how you establish them to be robust and strong well into the future and to have a longer life. So they say that establishment is 3 strong growing seasons, and trees can take 3 to 5 years to get established. And I have here the link to these plant irrigation trials. And by the way, one of the handouts for this webinar is going to be this PowerPoint presentation in PDF form, because I'm going to be giving you a lot of information, especially as to which controllers have different strategies. And so I don't want you to be taking screenshots or taking pictures of the screen, because you're going to have this PowerPoint presentation in the form of a PDF that will get emailed out later. Okay. So this is one of the ways that we know how much water. We have our evapotranspiration, and then we compare the plants to cool season turf grass. Okay, so that's how much water. And I'm not going deeply into that, because you don't even really need to know that, because we're talking about smart controllers here. If I were teaching you how to schedule, I'd be going into all of those elements and factors really carefully for you so that you could create an accurate irrigation schedule. But you don't need to because you've got a smart controller. All right, so that was how much to water. Now we have that second question, when to water. And that's funny, I've got a graphic here of a gas tank that shows it's half full. What does that mean? What could that mean? Well, actually, I'll go back to that because this next slide doesn't explain that, but the one after does. It means that when our soil moisture container gets half full, gets down to half full, we fill it back up. All right, I'm going to give you that much right now. All right. Now this graphic, actually, I'm going to pause a few moments so you can read what's going on this graphic, on this screen. I wanted to show you this particular graphic because it demonstrates the continuum for irrigation. We go from left to right. We start with total saturation. And something that I love about this graphic is that it shows the soil particles and it shows the spaces between the soil particles, because those spaces are really, really important. The spaces between the particles is where water and oxygen can reside. All right, so now in this continuum, we have saturation, then we have what we call field capacity, because this saturation event, maybe it rained and the soil moisture container is full. When I say soil moisture container, I'm talking about the soil that the plants are in, and it is as deep as the deepest roots of your plants. All right, if you have a field of lavender, your soil moisture container is probably around 12 inches deep, depending on the soil type. All right, so we have saturation. It rained a lot, or we irrigated long enough to fill up that soil moisture container. After 24 hours, when all the gravitational water, the water leaves through gravity, the excess water, then we have just like this wet sponge. So it's not a sponge that you can wring the water out of. It's just sitting there and it's wet. It's wet. If you move it around, water isn't going to drip out of it. That is field capacity. And then as the water continues leaving the soil, then we get closer and closer and closer to the wilting point. And the wilting point is what we want to avoid at all costs. We don't want this to happen because there is no longer water or available water in the soil at this point, because there is some water there, but the soil particles are going, no, I'm holding on to this. You can't have it. So what we do with irrigation is we manage our irrigation water, or we manage our soil moisture water content in between, right in here. This is what we call the sweet spot, right in here. We want it neither saturated, because there's no air there when it's saturated. All right, plants can die, they can drown in this condition. Nor do we want it on this far right end so dry, because there's air there, but there's no water. So we're managing our irrigation right here in this sweet spot. Okay, so then I can go on to this next graphic, and I just love this one. This graphic I found it on hydropoint.com, and this is one of the smart controllers that's available out there. And they have this graphic on their website to explain to people how their scheduling algorithm works for their smart controller. And actually, this is the way it should work for every smart controller. This is how we should be managing our irrigation. So going left to right, again, here's our either rain event or an irrigation event that filled up that soil moisture container. Then the next day we had, partly cloudy or partly sunny, however you want to say that. And the soil the water evaporated and transpired through the plants. It left the soil and went into the atmosphere. Just a little bit, like a couple of inches down, just a little bit. The following day, bright sunny day and warm, sunny and warm. And a lot more water left the soil. And so that now that soil moisture container is about half full. So the next day we fill it back up. So that's what we do with irrigation. We start with a full soil moisture container. And as the water leaves, the water leaves, the water leaves. Once it gets down to half full, we fill it back up, or we top it off. You could explain it like that also. All right. So then that is just the basic mechanics of irrigation scheduling. Now, with those mechanics, you can't just go out and create an irrigation schedule. I didn't teach you how to do that, but I did show you what is involved in the algorithm that the smart controllers use. Now let's look into choosing smart controllers now. What we recommend very strongly is that you choose smart controllers from the EPA WaterSense smart controller list. So they call them WaterSense labeled or WaterSense certified controllers. And the reason that we recommend this so strongly is, oops, I went the wrong way. Hang on here, is the second bullet point. Since 2011, all controllers on the list are certified by a third-party licensed certifying body that ensures the controller passes rigorous testing protocols. So the smart controllers that are on this list are proven to save water. They've got it dialed in. They know how to save water. And right now, the current list, I think the next slide actually has a QR code that will take you to that list, but I'm also going to email it to you. So something I wanted to say about this also is that about choosing only smart controllers that are on this list. And you might say, well, aren't they all on this list? Well, no. As a matter of fact, I went to Amazon.com about a year ago and I searched there on Wi-Fi smart controllers. And in that, I found 69 brands of smart Wi-Fi controllers that are not on the EPA WaterSense list. So that means they have not gone through this rigorous third-party testing to verify and certify that they do indeed save water when programmed correctly. So that was a really good case in point. Okay, let's stick to this list because you know what? Any controller you need is going to be on this list. And the prices are, because the market has been glutted or flooded with smart controllers in the last probably at least 6 to 8 years, just literally flooded the market. The prices are coming down and down and down. They are very affordable. The way I see it, there is no reason why not to have a smart controller. Okay. All right. So the current list, WaterSense list, has 23 brands of smart controllers and 972 models. So because that list is so unwieldy and so ridiculously huge, and at least half of that list, probably 3/4 of that list, if you're a homeowner and you're just talking about a residential property, at least 3/4 of that list doesn't even pertain to you. So what I've done is I have created a modified list myself. So I'm going to have the link for you to download the current list, but I have a modified current list and I'll talk about how I've modified that list, but you will get that Excel spreadsheet. And with the rest of this presentation, I'm going to explain to you how to decide which smart controller is best for you. So let's see here, 23 brands. I think I said everything I wanted to say about that. Okay, let's go ahead and go on. And then, so this is this is a screenshot of the web page. I have the link here, and also this QR code would take you to that page as well. But oh yeah, the funny thing about that is that the QR code won't let you download the PDF, but at least it can, well, anyway, there's the QR code for you. But like I said, I have a better list for you. So please do go ahead and look at my list first, and then you won't be so overwhelmed. Oh yeah, so another thing I wanted to say about that list is that this webinar today is for residential customers. So what I did with the list was I just deleted all of the commercial controllers on that list. And that meant several brands were deleted, because there are several brands of smart controllers that are really commercial controllers. And then for these controllers that I kept on the list, I had it go up to 24 zones. So I know that there are plenty of residential properties that have more than 24 zones, but I think I thought that 24 zones was a good cutoff, and it made the list much, much smaller and not so unwieldy and more user-friendly, actually. Okay, so then moving on. So then this is a screenshot of the Excel spreadsheet. And I do want you to know that I actually modified this spreadsheet a little. For one thing, if you go to the EPA WaterSense website and you do download the product list, for one thing, they're going to give you the tabs that are in the bottom of the spreadsheet. They're going to give you a ton of those, and there is an irrigation. WBIC is weather-based irrigation controllers. So that is that. See that I should be moving on here. All right. Okay, so then this funnel demonstrates how I filtered through this list. So we started with the WaterSense list. It started with 23 brands and 972 models. And then the residential smart controllers have 4 to 24 stations, and that ended up 16 brands and 182 models. But really, I'd like you to look at the brands, not the models so much. The brands while you're trying to choose, thinking of choosing, and then the models once you're really getting serious and you know how many zones you need and all of that. And then I have it broken down to whether, oh, let me go to the previous slide again. I added a couple of columns onto this spreadsheet. One column is whether or not an app is required for this smart controller. And then the other column is whether or not a peak schedule is required. And I will tell you what I mean by both of these. not to worry. All right. App not required, 11 brands. And then a peak schedule required, 7 brands yes, and 9 brands no. All right. So what do I mean by all this? First of all, I'd like to tell you where they get their weather data from. Some of them get it from well, most smart controllers, weather-based irrigation controllers, get their weather data from weather stations that look like this. Okay, most of them do. Some of them have free Wi-Fi access to that weather data, and some of the controllers have paid cellular access to this weather data. Okay, that's where they get it. Another way to get the weather data is an on-site weather sensor. Okay, there used to be a lot more controllers, well, at least 3 or 4 more controllers that had these in the past, but they have gone away. This, the smart controllers, they seem to come and go. So I would recommend going with the brands that are solidly irrigation manufacturer brands, and they're not as likely to just come in, try out the market, not like it so much, and go away. So the irrigation manufacturers, Hunter, Irritrol, Rainbird, Toro, those are major brands that we use in Northern California. Also Weathermatic, HydroPoint will stay around for a long time. Okay, so you could have an on-site weather sensor. So you buy the controller and the weather sensor, maybe you pay extra for it. Usually you do pay extra for these. You install them, and then there are no ongoing fees. You get your weather data from these sensors that are on your site. And then these weather sensors measure solar radiation, air temperature, and rain. Actually, they don't measure the rain. They just shut the system off when it rains. It's a rain sensor, not a rain bucket. Okay. And these are the brands that have weather sensors. Actually, let me go to the previous slide. These are the brands that offer free Wi-Fi access and the brands that offer paid cellular access. All right. So that's what I did on each of these slides, is I listed the brands that do these things. So one of the columns that I added to that spreadsheet was, is an app required to use this smart controller? And for some of the smart controllers, yes, you have to have an app to operate the controller. And these are the current brands that are on the list that you require an app. So you could see that but this guy right here, all of these controllers are just a box sitting there. You can't walk up to it and do anything to it other than maybe running the stations manually. Otherwise, you need an app to schedule them, to check them, to run them, and everything. So that's why I put that column in, is there are schedulers that you absolutely have to have an app to use. And then there are schedulers where they have apps available, but you don't have to have an app to interact with them. And here are a sampling of them. And then here is a list of the controllers on the current list that you do not have to have an app to use the controller. And I have to say, I used to be a maintenance gardener, and I very much required that the controller that's sitting there on the wall, I needed to go up to it and be able to do things, check the schedule, put in a new schedule, whatever. So the ones that have an app, I'm not so crazy about those. It's these guys that I love, because you can use the app or you can interact with the controller itself. Okay. Scheduling methods. So, and that is the last column that I added onto the spreadsheet, is the first one is okay, so the last column is ask the question, is a peak schedule required? So there are two scheduling methods that are available in smart controllers. One is you put in a peak watering schedule, and the other method is you enter the zone data for each zone. And that's what this slide is covering. So entering zone data, you enter the data for each zone, you enter the plant type, you enter the irrigation type and or precipitation rate, you enter the soil type, you enter the soil depth, you enter whether there's a slope and how much slope, whether there's wind. Whoops. Yeah, so these are the elements or the factors that you enter in this type of smart controller. Now, these are the smart controllers, the actual brands that use this method. And there are a whole bunch of them. Ratio, whoops, sorry. So these are the ones that use that method. Okay. So that is the first method, entering the zone data for each zone. Now, the second method is creating a peak schedule. So in this method, you actually create an irrigation schedule for all of the zones on the property. So because irrigation schedules are pretty complex and complicated to create an accurate irrigation schedule, I'm going to show you here a couple of free web applications out there that you can use to create a peak irrigation schedule, and then just enter it into the smart controller, and it'll take it from there based on the real-time weather. So with this strategy, again, you create a peak irrigation schedule for each irrigation zone. And this is an app that you can use a scheduling web application to do this. And this one is actually an app that I created about 6 years ago, and it is up and public. Got a lot of people using this one. It's very user-friendly. So, and there is the URL to this app. Okay, and then there is another one as well, which is the Hunter Runtime Calculator. And you can use that in the same way to create a peak irrigation schedule. And these are the controllers that use that strategy. All right, those are the controllers that require a peak irrigation schedule, and then they just take it from there. All right. Okay. Ooh, that was sudden. I didn't realize I was almost right at the end. All right. So, and we're right on time too. So that is it. So I've given you the basics of smart controllers. I've told you why we really should be using smart controllers and why I'm so excited about them. They save so much water, and they make it so that you don't have to do so much work going down there and making sure you have the right irrigation schedule in there at the right time. So I urge you to go ahead and look at smart controllers. The water district representatives are going to come up now, and they're going to tell you about their rebate programs for smart controllers. And I urge you really strongly to give these guys a try. We are seeing the prices coming down so much on these. Like I said earlier, I don't see any reason why not to use smart controllers. So we're talking, and I didn't give you any numbers, but I'm pretty sure that from the numbers that I've seen, you can get a good smart controller from anywhere from $150, oh boy, up to $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, but on the low side, $150. But they are very affordable, and they are very worth it.